like to introduce Mike Whitty. He teaches at University of Michigan Dearborn and gives public talks to clubs like the Rotary and the Optimists on humanistic values and positive psychology, as well as media, science, religion, and the secular future. Mike also speaks on church-state issues, the dangers of fundamentalism, and religious extremism. Please welcome Mike Whitty.
In an election year, I'm going to focus to a large degree on church-state separation, religious extremism, the danger of world fundamentalism, fueling religious extremism, and the homegrown nativism and fundamentalism rooted in our country, in our culture, in our political culture. Very poignant in an election year. But I couldn't help but look at this wonderful anthology that some of you folks produced and see old friends. I want to name 3 books that are my favorites in a large and rich library. This is Nixon's speechwriter. I love it. The book is called American Theocracy. And he said that big problems, like a torpedo coming to the Titanic, the big problems for America were oil, over-financialization, Wall Street collapse, and theocracy. That we had some distortions in our constitutional republic or democracy, or however you would think of it. We have some distortions, the worst of which is a kind of primitive, crusader-style religious fanaticism. And it was captured by a writer from a rural part of Virginia, and I've always liked the title, Deer Hunting with Jesus. Dispatches from America's Class War. / Ted Nugent. How many are familiar vaguely with the rock star Ted Nugent? Okay. How many are familiar with his political outlook? Okay. This is the thing that Trump's got rolling for him. He's pulling the people out of the swamp, and he's marrying, and it's an unholy alliance, and I'm going to address it. He's marrying the militia and Klan with the religious bigots. And a lot of times in a small town, they walk among each other anyway to shop, and somebody in the family prays, and the other person's out deer hunting. But there's a crossover. The Duck brothers are another way of capturing it, in the Duck family, or whatever they are. They're out from the swamp, and they're on national television. So I like the title. It seems to capture the whole damn thing. And I'll get in trouble with my 3rd book. Some of you hardline people are free to take me on here. And because I view these 2 problems as coming upon us like a Mack truck, we could get rolled over if it's a election on race. If the election comes down to an unspoken us versus them, we lose with the Duck brothers, if I could, or the Ted Nugent people. So if these 2 are paramount concerns of yours, they have very little use for non-believers of any sort. They consider you already in hell, or have a free pass to hell, and they'd like to give you hell in advance to boot. So if you have the same concern, I have to embrace one of my favorite living Americans, Jimmy Carter, in his book, as a Baptist, mind you. That's where I would get myself in trouble in the Q&A, and I don't mind because we're among friends and we can disagree on a few points. But he has an awfully good book, believe it or not, and I didn't quite believe it until I read it. And I wasn't a way big fan when he was president. I've just become a bigger fan in his years since he was president, with Bill Moyers and Jimmy Carter. And I've become a bigger fan of Barack Obama in his 2nd term than I was in his 1st term. So we all should stay open-minded a bit and learn from everyone, even people we don't agree with 100%. So I think an ally in trouble, an ally that we need to hold off the rise of friendly fascism in America and a form of ugly right-wing populism. There's a place for Hightower and Bernie Sanders' left-wing populism doesn't have the same racial, ethnic hatred and demonizing associated with it. I don't buy the equating the two insurgencies. They're a different type of insurgency. So, like I say, I'm just picking 3 books off the shelf to bring up to you, and let me just walk through a couple things here. Like I said, here I see this endangered values. We need allies from liberal religion. We need the Unitarians, yes. We need people that can form a united front. Way late in the 30s, there was an attempt, after Hitler had divided the left in Germany and won power, he deposed the left, the Kaiser, and the monarchist. Maybe they lost standing because of the Great Depression. So by the end of the 30s, there was an attempt to form a united front against fascism. The notion of the united front was you found any ally who could share your position in order to block the worst case scenario. I had a friend out west. I taught at the University of San Francisco, and this guy wrote a book called The Left Hand of God. And he was saying we need to form a united front. He called it a network of spiritual progressives. And he said you could be a member if you were an atheist or an agnostic or spiritual but not religious. You did yoga. You took a walk in the park. You believed in mindfulness or breathing exercise like that. So he said you can be an atheist, an agnostic, a spiritual but non-religious, or you could be what I'll call here a religious liberal. Because they call it the network of spiritual progressives. He said this is the best antidote to countering the fundamentalist, the religious right, the Ted Cruz Pentecostal, kick out the jams, Ted Nugent, militia clan segment of the country, the nativist segment. We've always had with us from the day of the Salem witch trial in 1619. We've always been having witch hunts. Joe McCarthy, Ted Cruz, the guy from Wisconsin, forgot his name, the governor, Walker, they like a witch hunt. In the case of Wisconsin, it was the unions. Once upon a time, Joe McCarthy, Cruz looks a lot like him, acts a lot like him. It was the communists. Now, if the terrorists do something that the TV magnifies and exaggerates before this election, they can throw the Wayne Westland voter into a stampede to stop the terrorists. The anti-communist crusade or the Salem witches. In Detroit, we have another thing about them, those people. I won't tell you who they are, but if you stop to think about it for a minute, it could be a dangerous election like '68, where Nixon wins with a silent majority. It's a plausible way, despite the rock and roll that the GOP is going through now, it could still pull out a Nixon '68 victory with, quote, a silent majority, with an unspoken issue, which I won't speak. It's called a dog whistle. And it's already coming on. And the TV is unfortunately as big a culprit as the fundamentalists. If the TV didn't do their showboat type stuff to keep entertaining you and making you stay on the cable, if they didn't do shock rock, they wouldn't magnify these forces that have been with us for a long time. It's part of the streak of fear that leads to anger. Psychologists say anger is a sign of fear. It's an expression of fear. Our freedom is at stake. Our personal liberty is at stake. What kind of laws they can pass compelling us to follow the religious beliefs of what is a small minority of the population. The tail wagging the dog, that type of partisan. We're just for people who want to have liberty and freedom. Liberty and freedom. We don't want a police state, don't want a drug war, don't want the big government to be so big that they can jail everybody. and wasting money on impossible projects like trying to stamp out marijuana. It's like trying to stamp out alcohol with prohibition. People like their beer, and they'll let people cross to Canada to supply them beer in the prohibition, the Purple Gang. So people like their medical marijuana for their arthritis or what have you, and that's the way it is, you know. So there might be all kind of allies who don't want some kind of religious police state created. Like they do in the Islamic extremists, you have religious police go around and take people right off the street if they're not wearing a veil or don't follow the most fundamentalist side of Islam. So we could have religious police, and how here? Because we have a lot of sex phobia, and we have a whole lot of fears. If you let policy, law, and even belief be driven by fear, you get an ugly future in an unhappy world of folks who are oppressed, targeted, and scapegoated. So it's not just a united front opposing Trump and Cruz. It's a big PR opportunity for secularism, which is the majority of the population. I look at my family. We're all raised Roman Catholic. And I listen. There's only one member. I'm the oldest of 5. There's only one member who's still in a Catholic parish. But it isn't because that brother, you know your family, your brothers and sisters. I don't think that brother really believes he's going up to heaven. I don't think he really, belief in an afterlife is not an important, and it's not a lived value by my most nominally religious of 5 kids. So I'd say, hey, the bulk of them are operationally indifferent, unaffiliated, and they're not buying Pat Robertson or some barn burner from the 19th century, you know, what is it, the Rapture or something like that. They're not up there rolling on the floor praising Jesus and stuff like that. They're just taking it like middle-class people do and have a pizza, run to the cleaners, turn on the sports, do the regular stuff. So I don't think we should think of ourselves as a minority that has to hide under the tablecloth. No, we're actually the majority. We're actually the majority, and have been for quite some time, actually. And so I think we could stop these people from pushing their values on us and the country and the world. I mean, they go over to Africa, and they get these governments to start anti-gay campaigns in the middle of Central Africa. I could see starting an anti-gay campaign in Hollywood. That'd be one thing, you know what I mean? But why the hell do you go to Uganda? What are you doing over there trying to get these people to go out and murder folks on the street? There's something insidious, if I may be so bold, evil about that. So, I don't even think Jesus, if he ever existed, and I'm not even sure he even existed, I don't think Jesus would do that. Remember that little sort of, what would Jesus do? What would Buddha do? I don't think Jesus would go out there and incite people to murder his own creation. It doesn't compute. So, you know, I just have a problem there. And I see it in a couple areas that are close to home, like Lansing, but that state legislature is doing is totally fundamentalist, totally fundamentalist. They are coming up with these religious liberty amendments, these religious liberty bills in all the states. They want to give a person the religious liberty to discriminate on their beliefs. And it's another clever ploy to milk religion and gullible people and frighten people and maybe angry people. Their television gets them angry. That's really where they're getting poisoned. The Fox and that stuff. Rush Limbaugh and the others are even more far out than Rush. I drive a lot and I listen to right-wing radio. It's sobering, but I listen. I want to understand what they're pushing. Let's challenge fundamentalism and religious extremism and try to end the culture wars, or at least secure a truce in the culture war. It's like a forest fire. You've got to try to curb it somehow. Leading by embracing tolerance, civility, separation of church and state, and rejecting theocracy as a solution to democracy. I say democracy, not theocracy. Or to put it in plainer English, live and let live. Let's live and let live. I'm courteous to Jehovah's Witnesses when they come to the door. I can even bring them in and talk about the Beatitudes, thanks to all those nuns on the east side that I had way back there. I'm sure if there is a heaven, and as I told you before, I don't think there is, but if there is, I think I'm going to get in, and I'm going to let you guys in the back door too. Just having a little fun here. So, we have even take it to a little bit more nuanced point of departure to open the floor to your reactions and your interests. I think we're seeing a fusion of religious zealots and a harsh extremism that is being tracked by the Department of Justice and an organization in Birmingham, Alabama called the Southern Poverty Law Center. They track extremist groups and they break them down into different categories, like they'll say militias or neo-Nazi skinheads or Klan, okay, anti-gay, the anti-government, conspiracy, militia, that type of posse comitatus, Aryan nation. We'd be surprised at how many groups there really are, and they catalog them and track them like the Anti-Defamation League does for anti-Semitism. And they've concluded that there have been just as many killings by right-wing extremists as Islamic suicide bombers and Islamic terrorists. But the country and the media are way out there for Islamic terrorists from abroad that are coming to Westland or Wayne, Michigan. And they're pulling into the parking lot now as we speak. They're looking for our meeting. But meanwhile, half the body count is dudes who hit the abortion clinic and opened fire. And a lot of this standoff in Oregon, we're taking the federal lands because we're ranchers and we got cowboy hats on and we got good rifles and we don't care what the FBI says or the U.S. government. It's that kind of old-fashioned, they made jokes about it. Dr. Strangelove, the movie Network. We have this sort of vigilantism and nativism well into the bloodstream of America. It's just part of the individualism and it has ugly expressions at different times in history. So the Southern Poverty Law Center, good thing to look up, good thing to check their website. You can subscribe to their magazine. But why I'm bringing that up is they bring that whole element that isn't always explicitly biblical literalist, dominionist, or religious fundamentalist. Sometimes there's a overlap. But they are in a united front. They're in an alliance together. It's most obvious with Trump's right-wing populism, which makes easy bedfellows with the religious right. So if you think Obama has been embracing the wrong people, going to federal prison, standing up for gay people, you think Obama's been doing the wrong thing from your church point of view, and you don't like a black president or black people anyway, it's them people and those people, kind of silent majority Dick Nixon days, Southern strategy. It's a nice, you can readily blend together in a rural county or somewhere, someplace. And so we have rural alienation, nativism blended with that, often led by religious people that want to grab the press attention with hate and fear, target gays, blacks, women, you name it. They can find, or Muslims now, I guess Muslims are oh yes, I forgot, forgive me, immigrants and Mexican immigrants who are coming from Bageant and trying to invade Corktown, or who knows what'll come next, it's just kind of a hysteria that has swept up a portion of the country, looking for scapegoats in the midst of human frustration and confusion about life itself, the country, and their own family and kids. So if the kids messed up, you couldn't manage to have a good kid, and that's a sorrow and a tragedy, and the income isn't what you want, and whatever is your list of sorrows, and you can have that projected out and blame somebody else instead of the subconscious self-blame that you might have and carry as a sorrow. You can take people like they did in other countries into Mussolini or Nazism, and they don't even know what's happening and they like it. I see this as an unholy trinity. You like that? Unholy trinity? Some of you might remember the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity of Detroit is pizza, hockey, and beer. No one will doubt me there. Some other people doubt the Trinity. The Unitarians do. You Unitarian? Not Trinitarian? But really the unholy trinity is the bigots and the bankers and the boobs. Okay? The bigots and the bankers is my shorthand for it. Rich golfers using the white poor as pawns in a horribly unholy and irrational alliance out of resentment of black people. The working class whites, unfortunately, use as a scapegoat transposition from their meth habit or whatever the hell's going on in the poorest districts, white, rural America. Or pockets of Metro Detroit. I don't want to make it all sound back in the woods. Michael Moore has done many movies, a new one out, What Country Shall We Invade Next, recommended. I had him in a class I did at Flint, and I showed his movie Roger and Me on Flint, the Buick City, GM. Now the Buick is made in Shanghai, and they're going to ship the Shanghai Buick to Flint and sell the GM Buick built in China. You wonder why Trump has a little something going, or Bernie has a little something going on jobs and trade and economics, So that's another discussion. But Michael Moore did a book called Stupid White Men. He didn't really say that, wasn't intending to say all white people are stupid or all white men are stupid. And he was really pointing to the rich white elite. You can see I'm passionate about at least using the election to curb and marginalize empowered fundamentalism, which seeks to really take the country back, indeed, back before it was ever made a country, to the Salem witch trials and the Puritan fathers, to Calvinism and to a harsh fundamentalism. Yes, they want to take the country back, and to forestall the kind of ill will we have towards those who are different from us, or hesitancy and fear of those who are different from us, as against the live and let live attitude, as against trusting life and trusting ourselves to life, and having less blameology, less victimology, a little bit of solitude, a whole lot of gratitude that we're here to enjoy the meal and the meeting, and a loving attitude toward ourselves, to love ourselves more, and our neighbors, and the world. Carry a positive message, which I reduce for the person who says, I don't pay any attention to that stuff. Enough already. I don't read it, I don't listen to it, I don't even have cable. I'm completely blank on it. I say, we need a live and let live world. I need people to give me a break as I'm coming down Ford Road. I need them to obey the green light and the red light. I need a degree of getting along together so I can get to the meeting on time, safely. We do need a live and let live world. We don't have to have everybody become an atheist. We don't have to let people can become mystics or pagans or born again. We got to have a live and let live world and have a truce in the cultural war and trust our evolution, trust our future, and build our legacy as people who know that we can take care of ourselves and we don't need God to help us do that. Thank you very much.
My Mike, you mentioned Americans United. Are you familiar with their campaign, Protect Thy Neighbor? And it's basically in response to the religious freedom laws that are popping up all over the United States. What they've developed is a shield, and on the top of it, it has Protect Thy Neighbor, and then you can put in any verbiage you want. And we used the shield at the Reason Station this January, and it said Protect Thy Neighbor because hatred and bigotry based on religion is still hatred and bigotry. And
That's a powerful statement there, right there. That's right to the point of my whole presentation. There, and that's a good point to use in the public eye. Hatred and bigotry, even in the name of religion, is still punishing and playing God or being overly harsh and mean, and all the things that are negative qualities, not our virtues, not our better side. You know, the sure way for success in life is cultivating our virtues and eradicating our negative qualities like pessimism and fear and anger. That's an awfully good, succinct way, Doug, of capturing it. The challenge to democracy, I say the biggest challenge is theocracy. This tendency to really exploit people's fears and to utilize tools to make it fear of God, fear of the stranger, fear of the other, them, those people, that stuff. What a shame, because that's how people go to war with each other. That's why they have these communal wars and hate crimes and things like that. And then kids pick it up from the parents and go out and commit the hate crimes. And they got it from the kitchen table, from Archie Bunker, if you remember him. Maybe you had somebody in the family like Archie, for that matter. Or Meathead. Did you have anybody in the family like Meathead? Maybe.